Hello and welcome to the July 24th edition of the Thursday Night Thunder podcast with AJ and MMK. This is episode 24 of the series. I'm your host, Adam Jason Sinclair. Tonight, Michael and I will once again bring you the best discussion about the world of modern motorsports. On tonight's program, the most hardcore program on the internet, we're going to start off by visiting the world of politics. A touchy subject, of course, but one that has dominated the news cycle since its inception. Our first guest this evening is Gerald Sessler, a Navy veteran, former NASCAR driver, cancer survivor, and Trump endorsed congressional candidate. His new book, How We Broke America, A Checklist to Fix It, is out now. Fueled by his remarkable personal journey and unwavering belief in America's founding principles, Mr. Sessler lays out a no nonsense checklist style plan to fix the country and restore its core values and constitutional foundations. He's been featured in Fox News, NBC, PBS, KEPR TV, The New York Times, NBC's Right Now, NTD News, The City Herald, and several others.
Rooted in biblical values, individual liberty, and economic self-reliance, the book outlines practical solutions to national decline, from border insecurity, big pharma overreach, to education reform. Endorsed by Lieutenant Gen Michael Flynn, the DOJ's Harmeet Dillon, among many other prominent political figures. How We Broke America is both a bold policy playbook and spiritual roadmap for everyday Americans ready to take action. Author Jared Sessler, in Washington's 4th District congressional candidate, draws from his extensive background in the military, engineering, business, and personal adversity. He views the country's decline as a broken machine that can be repaired with the right steps, strong leadership, and moral conviction.
We're pleased to welcome him this evening. He's not quite in the program yet, but he'll be here momentarily, and we're hoping that it's going to be a good interview. We just tried to stay away from politics on this program quite a bit if we can, but I think tonight's a good time to get involved in, especially considering the fact that this is an interesting time in the history of the United States, and it's always a good thing to talk about what's going on. Let's see, 1 second here. This evening. He's got a lot of good things to say to us, and he should be an excellent guest. I'm looking forward to it. His book does seem quite interesting, and hopefully we'll get a chance to review that in the future as well. But that will be reviewed for either the Motorsports page, but more than likely I'll do it on the Orplum's Fantastic Find, because I already had some literary pieces reviewed on that site. Again, we're looking forward to talking to Mr. Sessler this evening. Should be a really cool interview, and he'll be on the program in a moment or two. We're going to try and keep the program a little bit more West Coast centered tonight, as Mr. Sessler is a candidate there for office in the state of Washington. So we're going to do some Washington-centered stories and talk a little bit more West Coast. If you're interested in discussing more things about the West Coast with us, we'd love to have you on the program. We're looking forward to talking to you guys in the future, and hopefully it'll be a good show. Now we've got got a bunch of different things we're going to be discussing this evening, including the racing out there out west. The two things we're discussing out west are both boat races, so that'll be kind of neat. We don't generally get into the world of motor boats very often, but it is an interesting subject. We'll talk about that a little bit more. We'll also talk a little bit more about the monster trucks tonight, because there was a monster truck incident this past weekend there in Washington, as we discussed. There's also the incident there in the NHRA, which we'll be talking about too briefly. The NHRA unfortunately did cause the removal of one of the driver's fingers, which is something you don't see very often, but it's not a very good thing. But hopefully Mr. Reed will be back on shortly. Anyway, looks like we had a couple technical gremlins this evening, but hopefully nothing too bad. And we do have the PR woman for the candidate there for Congress in the program this evening. She's standing by in our little listening area, so she's listening in. Again, we're standing by for Jared Sessler to call into the program tonight. Should be here momentarily. Now, it's going to be a good show tonight. We've got a lot of good things planned for it, and we're hoping it's going to be an excellent program. For those of you who are interested, we'd like to have you on the program in the future as well. We're trying to expand our focus a teeny bit away from motorsports. We do love the the heart of motorsports. And if you're a motorsports person, we'd love to talk to you. Let me go ahead and check something out here. Hold on 1 second, please. There he is. Okay, so we've got Mr. Sessler on the program now. Let's go ahead and get going with him. Mr. Sessler, how you doing this evening, sir?
Good. How are you? Can you guys hear me?
I can, yes, sir.
Oh, good. Sorry about that. Sorry for the delay.
No problem.
I was actually listening, and the system couldn't hear me. So, hello, everyone. Thanks for having me on the show tonight.
Thank you for being here, sir. It's a good to have you on the show. First off, when you were growing up, who was your favorite race car driver?
Oh boy, it depends on the era. I think everybody was a fan of the Intimidator at one point or another. Bobby Labonte was probably one of my favorites. I got to meet him multiple times, and I actually got to know some of the drivers. Trip back to North Carolina. But I think Bobby Labonte was probably my longer term favorite. He's just a great man. He's a strong conservative and good race car driver, and so he's probably the one that I followed the most, or he was kind of my favorite.
Awesome. We've had a chance to talk to Bobby Labonte on this show a couple times in the past, and he does seem like a really interesting guy. And my grandmother was a huge fan of Bobby Labonte before she passed. It was awesome. She had a chance to meet him as well. So it seems like he was a really good representative for NASCAR, and he's also a really good guy in general. He's been a really good career after the sport is ended as well. So, how your unique
now, just real quick, it's interesting now. If you follow some of these people, you can interact with them on Twitter, and it's quite interesting. Just to see kind of what they're doing. I know Mark Martin's on there, and a bunch of other drivers. So it's kind of interesting to sort of have that interaction with them now that they're retired and maybe a little bit more accessible.
Yeah, and they're definitely those in particular are definitely not they're not shy about sharing their beliefs about the way the sport and the way that the country general are going. So it gives you a little bit different idea of who the people are.
Yeah, 100%.
How have your unique life experiences inspired the book you just wrote?
Well, my background is I'm an engineer, manufacturing mechanical engineer, and so I'm really a process engineer. I think some of that is what sort of drove me to racing. I think racing is a sport that builds really good men. I will say that we raised 3 kids, 2 of them are boys, and they started racing when they were 4 or 5 years old, and now they're in their 20s, and they're great race car drivers, and they're also great young men. And I think the difference between racing and a lot of other sports is you have to learn to lose, because you lose a lot in racing, and wins are hard to come by, and they're very special. In terms of the book is very unique. It's different than any other book I think anybody's probably ever read in politics or in any other segment, because it's not typical. It's more of a checklist. It goes through some of the serious mistakes that we've made in our country over the last 249 years, and then it also points to some steps that we can take to recover or to remediate or to change or to go back and fix some of those mistakes. And so it doesn't read like a novel. It doesn't read like a tech book. It doesn't even read like a political book. It's more like, hey, they screwed this up back in 1964. This is what happened when they made this decision, whether it was in the Congress or in the Supreme Court or in the White House or whatever. These are the things that happened, and this is what we need to do to recover, and this is how it helps make America great.
That's cool. That sounds like an interesting perspective. I love to, like I said, I'm looking forward to reading the book. I'm going to be getting a copy of it shortly, so it should be interesting to see what your perspective is, sir. Do you have any unique writing habits?
I don't. I've written other books in the past, primarily on health and fitness, but I think my strategy for writing a book, and I would, strongly encourage other people who, have good thoughts and ideas to write them down. Whether or not you publish them or not, I don't think it really is the point. But for writing a book, the approach that I take is I obviously have to have kind of your big picture idea of what it is that you want to talk about or explain, or a story that you want to tell, and then you break it down into chapters or subtopics that could be divided up into chapters. And sometimes you'll have a lot more of those subtopics than what you'll ever end up with in actual chapters in the book. But because sometimes once you develop your list of chapters and then you start adding content underneath them, you start to see how some topics tie in with others, and you combine them and make a chapter out of it. So that's sort of the typical way I would say I would write. This one was similar, but each topic in this one had to follow a certain flow, and you'll see that once you open up the book. Every single one of them starts with one paragraph to state the problem. Very succinct. I'm not telling stories. It's not gonna take forever to read this book. Tell you what the problem is. Tell you, why it has negatively affected the country. What we need to do to fix it. Simple steps that people at every level can take, and then some references for where I research the information or backup quotes from other people and things like that. So it's very simple and very direct, and that's what I would say. That's kind of my approach for writing. I loved writing when I was in college. I actually took a creative writing class as well as technical writing. And so you learn a lot of different strategies on how to do it. But the reality is you just got to do it. Get out and do it. Instead of being just a consumer of content, share some of the ideas, especially if you're an expert in something, or if you're, older, like I've got less days ahead than I have behind me. And so it's nice to be able to write things and know that you're leaving some ideas for other people to consider.
Out of all your accomplishments thus far, what would you consider to be your best one?
Most definitely my family. I've been married to my beautiful wife, Nikki, for 29 years this year. We've been blessed with 3 kids. They are 20, 22, and 24. The middle is our daughter, and are all homeschooled. And our daughter is married. She's been married for a little over a year, and they just had their first baby, so we're now grandparents. And I think just looking at those great people that God gave us the honor of raising is the most exciting thing I have left to do in my life, and just watch what they do with their lives. There's lots of other things I work on every day and things I get to do, but my family is certainly the most satisfying.
Well, congratulations on your new grandchild there. That's pretty cool. Now I'd like to throw you out to my co-host, Michael Mullally Capallo, who's actually in your neck of the woods out there in Washington. She lives in Ephrata, and she has some questions for you as well.
Okay, so my first question, out of all of your achievements, I'm sorry, how many drafts did you go through before your final product?
Oh boy, this book has been in the works for about a year formally. Prior to that, it was just on my notepad on my phone. I was writing down ideas of topics in the book. I've had a bunch of travel helping with President Trump's agenda over the last year, and so I spent 3 weeks in the Middle East prior to President Trump's visit there, and I did a documentary in Panama, which was amazing. I've made trips. I can't tell you how many trips to DC, to California, all over the country, Canada. We just did a trip up there a few weeks ago. So all that travel time gave me a lot of travel time, airplane time to write. And so I think the biggest thing for this book, and you'll see it when you read it, is getting the format nailed down. And once I nailed down kind of the format for what I wanted for each chapter, then it was pretty easy to draft each chapter to fit that format. But then, of course, it has to go through editors, and they want to make all kinds of changes, which is fine. Sometimes when you write things, you have ideas in your head that don't actually make it to the paper. And so when somebody reads it, they're like, what did he mean by that? And so that's really good to have editors to read it, because they will point that stuff out and make suggestions. So yeah, so a number of different drafts to get to the final product. But the cover is really amazing too. I would highly recommend people go to howwebrokeamerica.com and just, if nothing else, look at the cover, because it's a pretty dang cool looking book. It's basically a graphic of the United States that's kind of cracked with all its money leaking out the bottom. It's pretty cool image.
That sounds really neat. What part of the book was the most challenging part to write?
Well, let's see. I don't think any of it was really difficult. I know almost all the topics pretty well. I've been studying politics for well over a decade, and have been involved with it quite a bit. So I also love to read. So I read a lot of other people's work. Like, just for example, Mike Lee has a book called Saving Nine, which was really great. He's talking about the sort of precarious nature of the Supreme Court and its 9 justices, because it isn't documented in the Constitution or any amendments to maintain the number 9. And sometimes people hear about this thing called court packing, and I think a lot of people don't really know what that means, but usually it's the opposing party wanting to add members to the Supreme Court so that they can manipulate the results or the calls that the Supreme Court makes. And so in his book, he talks about that. Well, I took some of his ideas from that book, because he articulates some of the mistakes that the Supreme Court made over the last 249 years, and incorporated those into my book. And I give him credit for that as well. And that's where a lot of the ideas come from. They come from other people, and I just have to study and learn, like, why is this a problem? What made it? How did it harm America? Like, for example, the 16th and 17th Amendments, how do those amendments hurt America? And so those are 2 that are very obvious to me, but I think a lot of people that don't study this political realm might not be as obvious to them.
And while driving race cars, did you kind of know you wanted to also be a writer?
No, I drove race cars when I was a lot younger, and back then I was interested in obviously family and business, because I want to make a lot of money, and raising my kids, honoring God, serving God, and just living life. I really didn't have any vision in politics, no vision in writing. I certainly didn't want to have anything to do with public speaking. I wasn't into any of that stuff. Never thought that I would meet the President of the United States and have his endorsement. Not only just the president, but the best president of our lives. I didn't have any vision of any of this stuff. This is all sort of an outgrowth, I think, of living, working, raising a family, running a business, paying lots of taxes, wondering what's happening to all those taxes, and realizing that corruption is rampant, and wanting to help make a difference, to make it better. More like what I think our framers envisioned when they organized our country originally.
And for those who don't know too much about our state of Washington, if you had to enlighten them, what would you tell them to be the best part?
So Washington State gets a really bad rap because it's literally near the bottom politically. It's one of the worst states in the country as far as politics, and anybody who lives here knows that. But I have traveled all over the world, almost every continent. I served in the Navy, so I got to travel the world there, and then travel racing, travel with politics, travel personal, and I always come back to the Northwest, especially Washington, and it's so beautiful here. The west side of the state is very green, lots of trees, lots of rain. The west side of the state is very dry, arid, but it's very well irrigated thanks to the Columbia Basin Project, which was built under President Roosevelt. And there's hundreds of thousands of acres of farmland that I'm driving through right now, and that's where we live. And we're picking fresh peaches off of our trees right now and enjoying them. We just had apricots a couple weeks ago and cherries a couple weeks before that. So this is the time of year for that, and I think that's the biggest thing. The other thing is about Washington is you can pretty much do everything within a couple hours. You can be out on the water, water skiing or wakeboarding, and 2 hours go by. You can go up to the mountains and you can go skiing. You can go camping, you can go fishing, you can go hiking. It's definitely unlimited resource. You could also live very nice here. I mean, the weather is great, at least on the west side or the east side of the state. It's kind of rainy on the other side, but some people like that. So I think that's the biggest thing. It's just so beautiful here, and I won't give up on this state. There's a lot of people who have left, gone to Idaho and Montana and Texas and Florida and stuff, but I won't give up. I've lived in this state my whole life, and I love it here, and built my life here, and raised my kids here, and we can turn things around politically. We just need good leaders.
And you said that you spent a decent amount of time gathering information and stuff like that for your book. What was your most memorable day in DC? Like, what was the moment that stood out to you the most while you were over there?
Well, I've been blessed to go to DC about, I think, around 50 times, maybe more in the last 20 years, but more so the last few years. And I think going to the White House is probably one of the most memorable. I've been there multiple times, but I was just there a few weeks ago. I think it's an honor for me. I've got a very diverse background. I've done just about everything, and so I have a lot of skills and knowledge of life in America. I believe in the American dream, and it certainly didn't let me down. And so that puts me in a spot where I have a lot of knowledge, a lot of wisdom on how things should be. And there's been multiple times in DC where I've been invited to private meetings to speak to members of Congress. And this is an incredible honor for me. I remember the first time I did it, it was just, it was like I wanted to pinch myself or something. It was like, why am I the one? How are these people asking me questions? These are members of Congress. They're the experts, right? And over time, I kept getting invited back, and there's other different topics and different things and projects that I've worked on. And obviously working with President Trump and his team, and being able to be involved in a lot of the different things that are going on in our country. All of it is a tremendous honor to me. And I think every person involved in the Trump administration is thinking very closely about how do we preserve America for another 250 great years? How do we prevent the authoritarianism and socialism and communism from creeping into our country? And how do we truly make America great again? They are very focused on that, and although mistakes may be made, I think that every decision is pushing towards trying to make our country as good as it can be.
And that enthusiasm is really just great. What changes, if you would have had the chance, do you believe you could have brought to King County?
Well, our district covers 8 counties in central Washington, including your County, which is Douglas County, but it also goes north to Okanagan and south into Yakima County and Franklin County, part of Adams County, Benton County, where I live, and then Klickitat County down on the Columbia River. So it's kind of a strip right down central Washington. And I think the big thing that we are missing with our representative is he just doesn't have. I'm running against Dan Newhouse, who is one of the 10 Republicans that voted to impeach President Trump, but he just doesn't have the conservative personality, morality, perspective that I do. And he also doesn't have a strong voice. I question whether or not he truly understands what our framers envisioned, as documented in great books like The Original Intent by David Barton. He also doesn't have a really strong voice in general. He doesn't come across as a confident person. He doesn't really speak in detail about the topics. When I meet with people throughout the district, especially business owners, they tell me that he really doesn't seem to make the connection on what legislature, all the regulations and all that kind of stuff. Kind of an empty shell. He's just there to fill the seat and, sort of do what his cronies, tell him to do, or what his law. And I think that's a disservice to one of the districts that is, we sit in one of the most conservative districts in the country and the most conservative district on the West Coast. And so we ought to have a representative who is going to be a strong voice for the things that are important to us. We don't have that today through Dan Newhouse.
And it's really no secret that Washington, and I'm sure elsewhere, but it's really noticeable in Washington, has a pretty high auto theft crime rate. In your personal opinion, what do you think could be done to combat auto theft?
Well, I think, big picture for me is we have to, this is going to zoom way out for people, but we have to teach civics to our kids. If our kids don't understand the social compact, or if the people listening to this don't understand the social compact, then you don't really thoroughly understand what it means to be American. If you haven't read the Declaration of Independence recently, and you don't know what the 7 articles of the Constitution or the 27 amendments are, then that's just a couple of hours of reading that could get you in tune with what it means. The reason why it's so important for us to teach it to our kids is because that is the perspective that they need to grow up with in America. The thing is, in America, is a lot of people, and I'll just give you a summary of why this is so important. And I'll do that in a second, but there's also other factors of this that are very important. Like, for example, we have to have a secure and safe country. We can't have 40, 50 million, 60 million illegal invaders in our country. We have to get a control on that. We have to secure our borders. We have to have law and order. We have to have a judicial system that is going to defend law and order. We have to have prosecutors that are actually going to prosecute crimes. But in terms of our big picture, we have to have a culture that understands that it is their responsibility to ensure that their actions don't violate the rights of any other American citizen. That is the basis for our country. What it means is that a lot of people will say they see police officers or something like that. God bless our police officers and all law enforcement, first responders. They're amazing. They give their lives for our safety and security. But they are not there to ensure that cars don't get stolen or people don't get offended, that people aren't, the crimes are not committed, places aren't robbed, things like that. That's not why the police are there. The responsibility for making sure that crime doesn't happen lands solidly in our laps, each of us individually. When we control ourselves and we don't commit crimes and everyone else does the same thing, that's how we stop crime in its tracks. And part of the problem with it is that, especially for example, under Joe Obama's administration, the economy went crazy. Like gas in Washington is $4 or $5 a gallon. I stopped and got a to-go meal we were visiting my daughter with her baby last weekend, and we got just a simple to-go meal, and it was $114, and it was basically food for 4 people. Like, does that seem a little unreasonable to just me, or does everybody else feel the same way? And when you have people that that live in in the lower income brackets that are struggling financially, and you have lunatics that are driving for $25 or $50 an hour minimum wage that don't understand that the people that hurts the most are the people that are at the lowest income brackets. Those are the people who end up getting driven to crime. Those are the people who end up getting driven to evading taxes and to having more of a sort of a gig economy where they're just getting by, barely getting by. And so we have to have an economic structure in America that honors the fact that everyone needs to be able to make money and needs to be able to survive. And it can't be super difficult. I mean, yeah, they have to input the energy and the effort, but we at least need to have a system that supports that. But back to this idea of everyone being the protector of safety and security. That's what we have to understand as Americans. Is it's all of our responsibility. We have to defend that individually, and that's how we make America safer again.
And my final question for you this evening, Mr. Sessler, what is your opinion on the EPA wanting to ban the modification of race cars?
Yeah, so that was the RPM Act, and I actually worked with Ralph Shaheen on that, and still feel like it's something that we need to push. Although Lee Zeldin is doing an absolutely amazing job leading the EPA now, and I think that those kinds of things are going to go away. But we need to codify that. The idea that we can't take a vehicle that ever had a VIN number and use it on a racetrack is pure lunacy. The idea that we're going to take, manufacturers or modifiers and hold them accountable for things that happen or products that they produce for cars that are intended or products that are intended to be used on the racetrack is just lunacy. That violates every piece of our constitutional rights. Obviously, for those of us who love racing, we don't want to be limited. A lot of these, like just take like for example the Spec Miata class. My son-in-law has been running some of those lately, and that's a very inexpensive form of racing. There's lots of, the IMSA and all kinds of different forms of racing. I mean, even NASCAR, decades ago, those cars were coming from factory cars, and so it's pure lunacy. We have to stand against that stuff, but the only way it really happens long term for us to be successful is we have to stand together as a community, and we have to use our role and our ability as citizen lobbyists to get our members of Congress to make sure they protect us from stupid, crazy, green new scam, climate change hoax garbage, which is exactly where this stuff is coming from. They're trying to control every aspect of our lives. This is the difference between us and the left. The left wants to control every aspect of our lives, everything we do, everything we say, everything we eat, all of our medical stuff, everything, how we use our water and farmlands, everything. They want to control everything. Where as conservatives, we're just like, man, can you guys just leave us alone and let us do life? Like, we're not assertive like that. And so it's harder for us as a community to come together and to defend ourselves because we're just not by nature controlling people. We don't think like that. We don't think that other individuals ought to be controlled by politicians. And so, that's where we have to come together, and we have to realize that our biggest strength is our grassroots ability to come together against stupid things like this, this attempt to, prevent, these pieces and vehicles from being able to be used for racing purposes.
Thank you very much for coming on the show this evening. It seems like you have a lot of interesting, good ideas to help make make Washington better and help make the country a little bit better as well. And we're looking forward to seeing how your career goes, and wish you the best of luck.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it, and look forward to chatting with you guys again sometime soon.
That would be great. Thank you very much for coming on. Have a good night.
You too.
Once again, the novel How We Broke America: A Checklist to Fix It, is now available on Amazon and Barnes and Noble, paperback and Kindle. Also, wherever books are sold, be sure to look for it. Moving ahead in their script a little bit further. Let's see here. Castrol, a global leader in lubricant technology, an official motor oil partner of the NBA and WNBA, recently unveiled a one-of-a-kind paint scheme for RFK Racing in a crossover partnership that brings together several high-profile platforms ahead of the 2025 AT&T WNBA All-Star Game. Inspired by six-time WNBA All-Star Alyssa "The Engine" Thomas, the livery design complements the relentless drive for excellence and a collective commitment to performance.
The custom paint scheme, designed in collaboration with Thomas, blends powerful symbolism with bold design. A basketball pattern base sets the tone, with Thomas featured prominently on the hood. On the side panels, an infinity symbol donning a crown sits alongside two chess pieces representing stability, strength, and strategy, core elements of Thomas's game. Purple chrome number 60 emblems appear on the sides and roof, with a subtle XV Roman numeral nods to her legacy as the triple-double queen. Thomas' signature and nickname, the Engine, are proudly displayed on the hood and trunk lid, an official stamp of her imprint on every detail. For RFK Racing, the livery represents another moment to showcase the team's connection with Castrol while finding new and different ways to elevate its status on and off the track.
The latest activation from Castrol furthers its pledge to celebrating players and fans in its role as the official motor oil partner of the WNBA. Viewers were able to see the number 60 Castrol the Engine car on track at the Auto Trader Echo Park Automotive 400 at Denver Motor Speedway on Sunday the 20th, and can tune in this weekend for the Brickyard 400 Indianapolis Motor Speedway on Sunday, July 27th. We are now pleased to welcome Jeff Spies, the U.S. Sponsorship Manager at BP Castrol, to the show. Hello, how are you doing this evening, sir?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for having me.
Thanks for coming on. I know Castrol has been a motorsport sponsor for many years with IMSA, Formula E, and now NASCAR. How does this culture of speed translate to motor oil sales and fan interaction as a whole?
Well, first, I'd say that it's more about performance than about speed. So we've partnered with different motor racing circuits around the world, not just in the U.S., but we've done that for years, and that is a representation of who we are as a brand and what we do as an organization. But obviously, the performance of these engines, the performance of these vehicles is closely tied to the performance of the lubricants and the oils that we provide. And that little bit of difference can mean the difference between winning and not. And so we feels very natural to our brand and natural to what we do. And so we've always been a part of motorsports, and we're really excited to be part of the RFK Racing team.
Is this the first time that Castrol's spread their wings a little bit and been featured in a sport other than auto racing?
No, we've had partnerships outside of auto racing in the past. The NBA and WNBA is a new partnership for us this year. It does bring us into a slightly different territory than where we've been before, but we feel it has really good synergy, both when we're talking about performance on the court, performance of the athletes, how that's very akin to what the cars are doing and the athletes, the drivers themselves. So we feel like there's a lot of good synergy between what we've always done in auto racing and what we do and are doing with the NBA and WNBA as well.
Can you provide us a little bit more background about the history of Castrol?
Sure. We're obviously one of the most trusted brands in the category. We provide motor oil and lubricants to manufacturers, workshops, mechanics, individuals around the world. And we've done that for many, many years. And what often gets forgotten or maybe isn't known is that it's not just motor oil. Our scientists and engineers are constantly evolving what we do and evolving the products that we bring to market to help different industries, things like aviation or marine or even NASA. We work closely with NASA on the space shuttles. So just to demonstrate again how the oils and lubricants that we provide and make help in the harshest of conditions. And certainly NASCAR, the way that those cars run, that is a very harsh, performance-oriented environment, and that is a testament to the products that we deliver.
Let me go ahead and throw you out to my co-host, Michael Mullally Capallo in Afraid of Washington, who has a few questions for you as well, sir.
Sure.
Okay, so my first question for you this evening, after you have an idea such as something as cool as the engine, and it's really cool, how much thought and planning does it take to bring the vision to life?
Yeah, I would say first, it's not planning because this is actually really fun, right? At the end of the day, we're talking about designing the paint scheme on a NASCAR that's going to run on track. That's pretty cool, and we're pretty lucky that that's something that we can even talk about and do. So from a planning perspective, it's really it is work, but at the same time, it's pretty cool. It's pretty fun that we get to do that. We have great partners, RFK Racing. They're tremendous. They are really supportive of anything we want to try, anything we want to do when it comes to this. So again, planning, while it does take work, it's not that difficult because we have great partners. In this case, we also partnered with Alyssa Thomas. She is phenomenal. She's a great person. She's obviously a great athlete. She had a lot of great insight that she wanted to bring to the car, and that made it pretty simple to actually bring this execution to life.
And you kind of just touched on it a little bit, but what went into like putting it together, like from the moment you knew you wanted the engine on the car to getting it on the car, like what was the process kind of like throughout that?
Yeah, so it's typically when we work on a paint scheme with RFK, it's just us and it's RFK, and we're working back and forth to figure out what design makes sense for both sides. In this case, obviously, we're adding Alyssa and her team, and so that's another layer. We also worked with the WNBA to help make sure their input was provided and considered as we were doing this. So there definitely were more steps to the process, but we'd actually worked with Alyssa at NBA All Star. She was there and she spoke to a group of our customers as part of a business session around NBA All Star weekend. So we had known Alyssa. We had worked with her briefly in that capacity, and we knew she'd be great. We knew she'd have a lot of fun ideas. So we approached her through the WNBA and worked with her to get her input, get her thoughts. Obviously, she's not a designer of cars, so um, we didn't ask her to, draw things out or plan it in that way. We just wanted her inspiration. We wanted her really to provide the things that matter to her. And so she gave us a lot of input. We then went to NASCAR, or sorry, to RFK, and worked with them to put some designs together. And then we really worked with Alyssa to refine from there what the car looked like, what was important to her, and it evolved over time. We tried some different things that didn't look quite right, and then we really liked the idea of putting Alyssa on the hood as the engine, right? That's her nickname. Her superpower as a basketball player is all the things that she does to power her team, and that's why she got that nickname of the engine. And so we had the idea that we wanted her to power Ryan Preece's number 60 car at these two races. So we had her on the hood as if she was literally under the hood, helping to power the car for us. And hopefully we have one more race. Hopefully we can power to the winner's circle.
Well, I think the car looks great, and I really love the idea behind it. How did she react to the news when she found out Castrol would be honoring her in such a neat fashion?
Yeah, she was excited. I think just the opportunity to sort of open up who she is and what she's about to maybe a broader audience. She's very well known within basketball circles, not just women's basketball, but across basketball. She's very well known. But I think probably some of the NASCAR audience is a little less familiar with her. And so this was an opportunity for her to express who she is, for her to get some recognition, and timing it with WNBA All Star Weekend, where she was an All Star again, like just allowing her to get some recognition. I think she was very excited to speak to a new fan base. And, obviously anytime you can see your face on a vehicle like that, it's pretty cool. And I think she was excited not only to do it, but then when we had her take some pictures with it, she was excited to see it and actually see it in real life. It was pretty fun to watch.
And my last question for you, you kind of touched on this a little bit as well, but do you think we will potentially see other sports doing crossovers such as you guys have done? Do you think maybe you've inspired something?
I hope so. I think as it relates to the WNBA, like I said, we wanted to get Alyssa out there. We wanted to help her build her brand, and like I said, she's a great person. She's a great athlete, and so we really wanted to make that happen. We thought it was a powerful opportunity to kind of bridge those worlds. I think it makes a lot of sense, not just for the WNBA and NASCAR, but for other sports to do it as well. For us, we will definitely explore this again and figure out different ways that we can merge our partnerships together. It's only natural that we're going to try and work with all the tools and the assets that we have to bring a marketing message to life and to reach as many fans, as many people as possible. So anytime you can have a crossover like this, it's going to open up doors that maybe otherwise weren't open. So I know that we will try and do it again. I know that we will find these opportunities. I assume other brands will too. It's very natural and very easy to kind of make some of these connections. So I think it's ripe for more brands to dip into the space.
Thank you very much for having me on the show this evening, and hopefully like you said, hopefully the car makes its way to Victory Lane this weekend. That'd be pretty awesome.
That would be great. The race is back in Indianapolis, so right where the WNBA All-Star game was last weekend. So it would be a great synergy if we could get the car in Victory Lane. That would be amazing.
There you go. Well, thanks again, and have a great night.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it.
To learn more about Castrol's latest innovations, including its partnership with RFK Racing. To learn more about Castrol's latest innovations, including its partnerships with RFK Racing and the WNBA, visit castrol.com. Are you a race car driver, crew chief, pit member, track correspondent on the show? After all, you deserve your 15 minutes of fame, and we'd love to hear from you. The easiest way is to go to the website for the page, which is thursdaynightthunderpodcast.podbean.com. Check it out. I just recently updated the page there, so it should be a little bit easier to get around, and hopefully we're able to make a little bit more connection to our fans that way. The Tri-City Water Follies fans will be able to view 5 of the world's fastest racing boats on the eve of the 2025 Water Follies Apollo Gold Cup and STCU Over the River Air Show, the highlight of the summer festival season in the Mid-Columbia area. 5 of the 7 boats participating in the 2025 races will be displayed from 4 to 6 p.m. on Wednesday, 23rd, which was yesterday, so if you're able to see it, in the parking lot of Apollo Mechanical Contractors at 2600 North Columbia Center Boulevard in Richland.
The parking lot exhibition featured the U8 Beacon Electric, driven by J. Michael Kelly, U9 Beacon Plumbing, driven by Corey Peabody, U11 Flavor Pack, driven by Jamie Nilsson, U27 Miss Apollo, driven by Dave Vilwalk, and U91 Goodman Real Estate, driven by Andrew Tate. 2 additional racing teams will arrive in the Tri-Cities after the display event. U12 Graham Trucking, driven by Jeff Bernard, and U21 Spirit of America, driven by Gunnar O'Farrell.
The 7 racing teams will set up camp on the east end of the Columbia Park for the main racing event to come. Columbia Park will be fenced off starting at 6 p.m. Wednesday to prepare for Water Follies, which runs from July 25th to 27th. Admission is free for children 12 and under. For those 13 and over, tickets cost $75 for 3-day pass, with admission to pit area, $60 for weekend pass, $30 for Saturday admission, and $35 for Sunday admission.
Water Follies also offers packages for special areas such as the Bulldog Beach Club on the Pasco shoreline and the Starting Link Club in Kennewick. Go to waterfollies.com for ticket, RV parking, and schedule information.
Carvana, an industry pioneer for buying and selling used cars online, is proud to support 7-time NASCAR Cup Series champion and Legacy Motor Club co-owner Jimmie Johnson as he takes on a new kind of ride, piloting the historic Atlas Van Lines Blue Blaster hydroplane in a special exhibition at Seattle Seafair Festival on August the 1st. Johnson's upcoming exhibition is more than 4 decades in the making. In 1979, 4-year-old Jimmie was celebrating his birthday at the hydroplane races in San Diego when his dad, when his favorite boat, the Blue Blaster, broke down near the shore. The boat's driver, hydroplane racing legend Bill Munsey, welcomed fans toward the vessel. And Johnson's father carried him into the water to sit on his deck. A photo from that day, rediscovered years later, captures the moment without anyone realizing its future significance. Now, 46 years later, Johnson will return to that same boat, but this time in the driver's seat.
with coaching from 11-time APBA Gold Cup champion Chip Hanauer and support from the Muncie family. Johnson will pilot the fully restored hydroplane across Lake Washington in a one-time only exhibition that honors the boat's legacy and a personal memory for Johnson. At nearly 30 feet long and 5,600 pounds, the Blue Blaster remains one of the most iconic boats in hydroplane racing history. Carvana, which is proud to have served Seattle car buyers and sellers since 2021, will be on site at Seafair to connect with fans and the broader community. Attendees who sign up for Carvana's free value tracker tool will receive a branded seat cushion. The Carvana Value Tracker allows customers to monitor their car's value over time, helping them make informed decisions about when to sell or trade in. For behind-the-scenes content and highlights from the day, follow Carvana Racing on Instagram and X.
I know both of those events are very far from you, so you're planning on heading out to any of the interesting motorsports events in that area this weekend, or next weekend for that matter?
I mentioned it to my husband. I would like to. Like I said, I thought that at least the Gold Cup already passed, and so I think that would be a lot of fun. I've never been to the Seafair or anything cool like that. I've always wanted to go. I've been to a little bit of hydroplane stuff because we have like a lake. It's like 2 miles from us, and they bring in cute little hydroplanes, and you get to watch them come in from the crane and leave with the crane. So it's neat, and it is really cool. And I would like to try to go watch. And it, from what we just read, actually seems decently affordable. So, if you're looking for something fun and, motorsport related, it sounds like that might be the thing to do this weekend. So maybe I would like to.
Yeah, it does seem interesting. There's not as much motorsports, water related stuff out here as there used to be. When I was younger, there was a lot of racing like that. There used to be racing on Lake Osborne, where they did like the little small hydroplanes like you're referring to, where they had a lot of boats like that. There used to be racing like that at Sunfest, for those of you who remember that long ago. They had Sunfest had the boat racing along the Intercoastal, which was really, really cool. And it was a really awesome thing. I'm kind of sad to get rid of that. But like I said, there used to be a lot more. There used to be stuff in Miami where they had the unlimited hydroplanes there racing at the Miami Marine Stadium. That was a really, really high class event. Now it seems like most of the offshore power boats are definitely further offshore. They have the one in Key West, of course, but that is a pretty far offshore thing, and you can't really see much from the shoreline aside from the parade they have and the stuff at the marina, of course. But there's not as much stuff close to the shore anymore like there used to be in the past, and I think there should be. I know that there's a heck of a lot of support for that sort of thing here. This is it's sunny South Florida with all the stuff in the ocean and the intercoastal and all that. And it should come back. I'm very happy that there's these sort of events taking place in the on the west coast of the United States, but bring them back down here. They need to be here. So, but we'll see how that goes. It should be good.
Why did they kind of stop?
I think a lot of that is the support for it. The sponsors changed, the events changed, and that sort of thing. At the Miami Marine Stadium, part of it was hurricanes in the early '90s that really damaged the facility there. Things like Hurricane Andrew and all that made it. They condemned the facility, and it just never was totally rebuilt. They've redone it since, but it's not brought back those sort of events at all, which is sad. The stuff in Sunfest, the music festival that used to be in downtown West Palm, has it's reinvented itself so many times now. I don't think it even knows what it was anymore, and that's why it didn't come back to this year. And the stuff on Lake Osborne, that was cool, but it was kind of hokey too. And I think that after a while, it got to be that it wasn't really as serious as it could have been, and it didn't attract the quality of competitors, and it just sort of faded away.
That makes sense. But I would think you guys would have a lot more support over there because you guys have oceans and stuff.
Yeah, I would think so too. And hopefully, like I said, with the fact that the Jimmy Johnson's bringing attention to it, and the Carvana supporting it, hopefully they have a rebirth of that down here. That would be really awesome.
Yeah, well, I hope so too.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'd like to thank our guests this evening, the Jared Sessler and the gentleman from Castrol. That was really good to have them on the program tonight. And I think that if you're interested in more information about Jared Sessler and his new book, you can check that out. On Amazon, the How We Broke America: A Checklist to Fix It. That's available on Amazon and BarnesandNoble.com. It's also available in your favorite bookstore. Be sure to check that out. And of course, as we stated, the information about Castrol and this weekend's promotion of the engine at the Brickyard 400. You can check out more information for that at Castrol.com. Be sure to check out past episodes of Thursday Night Thunder by visiting Facebook.com/SE Thursday Night Thunder. You can listen to previous episodes of this show at the Thursday Night Thunder Podcast at ThursdayNightThunderPodcast.podbean.com. We're also available on Podchaser, on iHeartRadio, on Boomplay, on Spotify, on Player FM. You can also find us on YouTube at youtube.com/roarplums. I believe you can also find us now on Amazon Music, and I'm trying to get us on Apple again. I think you might be able to find it on the Apple Play Store. No guarantees there, but if you go to ThursdayNightThunderPodcast.podbean.com, it has all the links up at the top there where you can find at your favorite place to download podcasts. Be sure to check that out. We appreciate your support. I'd also invite you to check out my new racing news site at motorsportsnewsandviews.wordpress.com. I'm trying to update that at least once a week with various information about all different sorts of motorsports, not only land-based, but sea-based as well. I've got some articles coming out this weekend, so be sure to check those out. In addition, if you're a fan of South Florida, and who isn't, be sure to check out this latest news and information about our Slice of Paradise at my travel blog, For Roar Plum's Fantastic Finds, which can be found on Facebook at For Roar Plum's Fantastic Finds. On Twitter, you go to @PBHappening for that, now known as X, of course, and by heading to For Roar Plum's Fantastic Finds.wordpress.com.
Thank you for listening, and we look forward to seeing you again next week in the Thunderdome as we discuss the major issues in the world of modern auto racing.
Have a great night, and thanks again.